Okay, I've decided not to show you how I created these letters and the smoke sim coming out of them. There's plenty of tutorials on creating smoke sims in Eevee and they're better than mine. How to set it up to render smoke in Eevee with an alpha layer. So the first thing we do is we do actually have to make sure that everything is within the collection. So I've got a list of, there's got a collection here, and if I press that, we see all the objects here. If something's come out of the collection, let's make sure it goes back in again, like that, by dragging it. The second thing is I'm going to just look briefly at the world setting, so that's the shader editor and then to world. And at the moment I'm lighting everything using this HDR image, going into a background layer, going into the surface of the world output, which is fine, but what I want to do is I want to set it up so that looking through the viewport, what we actually see is grey rather than this world, a sort of dark grey, or, well, to be exact, you kind of want an average colour of the video you're going to put this alpha thing on top of. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a shader, a mix shader, and I'm going to just duplicate that background with Shift D and drag it in there, and I'm going to set this is the colour that I want it to appear in the render. You might say you want it transparent. Yes, but as the smoke is semi-transparent, it will fade to this colour as it fades to transparent. Does that make sense? I hope so. So let's set this to a nice dark grey. And finally, I want to add a, this is we in input light path, and we want to add camera ray into this mix shader here, like that, into the factor. So that basically this means that if it's seen through the camera, if it's that dark grey. If it's anything else, if it's lighting, if it's a reflection, whatever, it will appear as this. And if we go back to the 3D viewport, and we've now got, and I go to the camera view with 0 on the number pad, we now have the background being this nice dark grey we set it to. So, how are we able to get alpha? If I change this to rendering alpha, if I go to film and set the alpha to transparent, and now I press F12 to render a frame, it comes out absolutely nothing. If I just hop into composite nodes here for a moment, well, I've actually done some composite nodes, but if you've been going to the compositor and getting something that looks a little more like this, then all you have to do is click these 3 tick boxes: use nodes, auto render, and backdrop. And we get a render layers going into composite. Now it might be helpful to hold down Shift and drag down, so I now cut that there, and Shift A, add output viewer, and then link these together. So we now, if I had rendered something, it would appear in the background here. Sometimes it's, even though it's alpha, that smoke information is there. So if we add a set alpha node, note I use search there, and set alpha to 1, there is literally nothing there. The only way to get that smoke there is to set this to sky. And now if I press F12, there, sky, perfect. What I have found, however, is in the viewport shader, we do get alpha on smoke. So can we get the alpha layer from the viewport layer and combine it with the image from the Eevee layer?
Well, yeah.
First thing I'm going to do is here on the scene menu up here, you note that I've already named the scene Eevee. Now I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to go for the link objects option, and I'm going to, this second scene I'm going to call workbench, because I'll be using the workbench renderer. The scene is going to be exactly the same, And if anything is in this collection here, if we move the camera around, it's going to move it around on both scenes, and the same for everything, just the sun. The only thing that won't change from one to the other is, well, the render settings and the beginning and end frames here. So on this one called Workbench, I'm going to set the render engine to Workbench, and we may as well set it to flat and set it to a single colour. Now, if I press F12 to render, oh, well, you know what we missed off doing? I do actually still need to go in here, and on film I need to set it to transparent. There we go. Nice alphaness. So I'm going to shut that. The thing is now, how do we combine the others? Well, the first thought I did was like, yeah, can I like duplicate the render layers so that one of them is from one scene and one is from the other? Unfortunately, I found out that it was basically, right, so if at the moment I'm doing this in the Workbench scene, basically it would only take one frame from here. It wouldn't re-render this. It would just keep on using the same frame. I will at some point this out as a bug to the Blender developers, but as this is like the sort of trick that's only basically used by crazy people, I'm not going to get super worked up about it not working. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new scene, and this time I'm going to use it by clicking that and clicking new, and this one I'm going to call Edit. We're going to use the video sequencer. And the other scenes were both 150 frames long, so I'll set that to that. And I'm going to go Shift A, add the scene Eevee. I'm going to press G followed by Y and move that up a few layers. And then I'm going to Shift A, followed by, and this time I'm going to add the scene Workbench below it, and I'm going to press H to hide it. Now, now I'll select the Eevee layer again. Note that the Eevee layer is on the top, very important. And I'm going to press the modifiers tab there. And I'm going to add the strip modifier mask. And so the mask for this Eevee strip, which basically sets its transparency, is going to be the Workbench. Now, if I press F12, oh, one more thing I forgot to do. So it's basically taking the colour from the Workbench as the alpha layer. Not quite what we want. So let's go back to the Workbench scene, and this time I'm going to go to the compositor. But I don't want the image to be going out into composition view. What I want to be going out into them is the alpha layer. So now if we go back to the edit one, and I swap back to video sequencer, let's go to whatever frame we feel like and press F12. It's come out with alpha perfectly. So how do we fix the darkness? Well, it took me a while to realise this, not least because this part of the interface has moved to actually somewhere where it makes far more sense for it to be. But in render settings, we have a tab called Color Management. And the display device, when I created this new scene, has for some reason been set to DCI-P3, which I've never even heard of that. I don't know what it is. Let's go back to sRGB. And you might be using filmic lighting or film. I'm choosing not to at the moment because this is a very simple scene and I just want it to be that simple colour that I've become used to. But now if I press F12, we have the original colours and everything looks fine. I'm planning to do more in this series. Volumetric lighting with alpha, bloom with alpha. If you can think of anything else that's hard to do in Eevee with alpha, give me a shout and I'll see if I can twist some nodes together till it works.